Dale Jackson here with you. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you every day. We'll jump in with Jacob Morrison here on the Alabama A&M $350 million Bulldog Hotline here in just a second, but I do want to play one more clip. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and I respect this guy a lot. I really do. He has decided, I want this nomination. I want the VP nomination. And he is willing to debase and degrade himself in any way necessary to get it. It goes to show you, he and Kamala Harris are the same person. And that's good. They understand each other. They are both willing to get in there and do the unsavory things required to become the vice presidential nominee. He was on this white dudes for Kamala thing. It's a white affinity group. I don't know if you guys know that. They segregate themselves from the other races and sexes, and they get together and talk about how they are better than everyone else and only they can save society. Not weird at all. Completely normal stuff. But in his white affinity group, Tim Walz had this to say.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Yeah, that's right. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. These people are going to, how do I say this cleanly? These people are, they've gathered in sort of a circle and they're acting like jerks. And what they've done is they are going to gather in this circle and act like jerks their way out of this presidency. Because that's what they're going to, because people are going to take all this stuff that they're doing and show people and they're going to go, no, that's weird. Because that's weird. Socialism is just another word for being neighborly, guys. It's just another word for being neighborly. Let's bring Jacob Morrison on the line with us. You can hear him on the Valley Labor Report at 9:30 to 11 right here on WVNN every single Saturday. Jacob, did you miss your invite to the White Dudes for Kamala call?
I must have. I did not get that invite.
Is this something you'd be interested in?
No, I also kind of think it's the origins of it. I think was like a sorority kind of thing for Kamala, and so I understand that, but it feels weird. Not really interested in participating in it.
It is very strange. Can white dudes save the Democratic Party?
Probably not. Probably not is going to be my guess.
You really have no interest in this conversation, and I appreciate that. I really do. Now that the race is Harris and Trump at this point in time, Jacob, you're big in the labor movement. The labor guy spoke at the RNC. He was invited to the RNC. They invited a bunch of people who, in this particular case, he did not even give a pro-Republican speech. He gave a pro-labor speech. I was shocked that they let him get up there and give that speech. Is he going to show up at the Democratic Party and give a similar speech?
It's unclear at this time. He says that he has not received an invitation from the DNC. So if he receives an invitation, obviously he's going to go. But it's unclear if he's going to get that invitation at this time.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by what we saw at that speech because that speech you could have taken it and put it at a labor rally, and if he delivered it exactly the same way, you would have thought nothing because it wasn't even a pro-Republican speech. It was an odd thing. Now I know they're courting that endorsement. I saw something the other day, and it talked about the top donators to Trump. And did you know that at the top of the list of Democrats was like Microsoft and Google and stuff like this. And at the top of the list of Republicans, mail carriers. Did that surprise you? Have you seen that? Does that surprise you?
I haven't seen that. I would be interested in like how exactly those numbers are carried out, because it does surprise me because mail carriers are very frustrated, generally, regardless of your politics from the conversations that I've had with them, with Trump's appointee at the head of the Postal Service, DeJoy. And I think there's some amount of frustration with Biden for not pushing him out as well. But there's been a lot of frustration with the way that the DeJoy is handling the Postal Service.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting to see that that it was postal employees, because most of them, and all of them, are unionized, and I think that's interesting. All right, let's talk a little bit about some labor issues that are going on right now, since that is what you cover, and I think that's interesting. And oddly enough, to kind of go on this same thread here, the National Association of Letter Carriers, they're having their convention. You mentioned they're upset with sort of the leadership of that organization, and it continues. And as you said that, it reminded me that during the 2020 election, Democrats were screeching, saying that the guy who was heading that organization was trying to throw the election with mail-in voting and stuff like that towards Trump, but he remained. So is that an issue for the rank and file, or is that just has that issue gone away now that Donald Trump's gone away?
I'm not familiar with Democrats having had a problem with Brian Renfro, the president of the National Association of Letter Carriers. I don't know if there was
No. DeJoy. They had a problem with him.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's not a problem among letter carriers. That's not the thing that's animating them against their leadership or against DeJoy. Primarily what I'm seeing in some of the groups that are upset with the way that things are run is, things that are very common, things like pay, things like working hours, and a lack of competitiveness with UPS. A letter carrier starts at $19.33 an hour right now, whereas if you start at, a warehouse worker at UPS starts at $21 an hour. But after you complete a 4-year program as a driver at UPS, you're going to be at like $47 an hour or something like that, right? So
yeah.
It's not. I'm sorry. Were you about?
No, I was agreeing with you. That should be a problem that they have, and they're raising that issue, and they've kind of made that an argument. But they're government employees, and it's an election year. You would think that maybe they'd make more progress in an election year. Why do you think that hasn't happened?
Well, the administration of the union right now is not really kind of the same sort of administration as what the UAW and the Teamsters have. So one of the big things that some like reform type groups are bringing to the convention are resolutions to open up bargaining, because right now people on the bargaining committee nationally are not allowed to talk about what the issues are on the table. They're not allowed to talk about what the disagreements are. And so letter carriers across the country are just being left in the dark. They don't know where is the Postal Service? What is our union asking for? And what is the Postal Service saying? And so there's a lot of frustration with that. And in addition to that, there's some personal incompetence from the national president. There were multiple charges filed against him from people in his own administration. And that is just not something that you really see. He has members of his own executive board, multiple members of his own executive board running against him for the presidency. And so I think that this convention could be really dramatic in a way that most union conventions are not. They're typically kind of coronation processes and pageants and, trumpeting the things that the union's administration is working on. But this one is shaping up to be a real debate about the future of the union and what kind of tactics the union should take to the bargaining table.
Back to the state of Alabama here for a second. UAW, this conversation, I guess, is just kind of bubbling beneath the surface. No real progress in the last couple of weeks on the appeal to the National Labor Relations Board. No talk of another vote. Any movement on that at all?
No movement on that specifically in Vance. The thing that is, I think, most top of mind for a lot of folks in the UAW is what's been going on with the Federal Monitor and the new investigations into Sean Fain and the UAW generally, and also some of the, frankly, inappropriate behavior from the Monitor in relation to the UAW's stance on a ceasefire in Gaza. The UAW or the Monitor has expressed to the UAW, quote unquote, in his personal capacity, but multiple times, including at a meeting of the International Executive Board for the United Auto Workers, trying to debate them out of their position on a ceasefire in Gaza, which is just totally inappropriate given the amount of power that the Federal Monitor has over the UAW. I mean, it's really bordering on limitless. And it was after that final exchange that the Monitor had with the International Executive Board, it was only then that the Monitor sent this sweeping request for like 750,000 documents. And it was at that point that the relationship between the Monitor and Sean Fain deteriorated. I mean, the Monitor himself.
Yeah, no, I get all that. Like the debate they had, like they're discussing something that has nothing to do though with any of their actual issues. They're just, I mean, the union comes out and denounces war. Okay, awesome, great. Thanks for your input on this. Why are they getting bogged down into some dumb conversation about that?
Well, I mean, it's the Monitor that's bringing it up. Why is the Monitor, whose sole role is supposed to be maintaining, you know, the financial propriety and making sure that there's no corruption or anything like this, and who has extremely broad authority to execute that mission, why is he even broaching this topic and then forwarding letters from the Anti-Defamation League accusing the UAW of anti-Semitism to the UAW? I mean, it's just the obvious implication there that I think that most people would see is that there's an implicit potential threat that the Monitor is going to use the powers of his office to influence the UAW on this issue outside of his remit.
Yeah, well, the whole thing seems rather silly for him to be fighting about this in any way, shape, or form on either side. But that is kind of the stuff that they're getting into. Okay, there we go. Jacob Morrison, thank you very much. We'll talk more labor issues next week. I always appreciate you being here on the Alabama A&M.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.